My name is Harvey Edgar Nicholson. I was born in 1926. A month from yesterday, I will be 93, and that's September the 6th. And I'm the fifth child of seven within our family. There's only two left, Clarence and myself. He's 5 years younger than I. He also lives in Chatham. He figures as long as I'm walking around, he's safe. Okay, when I was born on the fourth concession of Anderton in a farmhouse. In fact, that's where all of us were born, and Dr. Hutchinson brought us all into the family, but we had midwives as well. We had my Aunt Laura and Aunt Eva. Eva would be my dad's sister, and Aunt Laura would be a cousin. They were the midwife for all of us kids. My mother, well, I was born, I don't know if I was born on Labor Day, but every now and then Labor Day falls on my birthday. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but that's the way it works. My mother was a hard woman, you might say, to be with, but was a good woman. My mother was a good woman, very, very stubborn, and if she wanted to do something, she did it. And maybe that's where some of us got our bullheadedness about us, I don't know. But anyway, Stan was very bullheaded. I may be a bit, but not as bad as he is. My mother would let us go off to a vacation. She'd stay home, and she'd bring a carpenter there and be changing the house when we got back home. Because she couldn't do it when my dad was there. He probably wouldn't let her. But she did a lot of things, and most of the things she did was good, too. She had good ideas. She was good. My dad was Carl E. Nicholson. His father came from outside of Windsor, Pelton Cross. And where he was born, I'm not sure. But I know he married, his wife was Eva Reynolds. And they got married, and they bought the farm where I grew up, and my dad bought the farm from him. And when they bought the farm, there was an Indian family living back in the bush on the farm. And they had to clear the farm, and I think it was 75 or 100 acres. They cleared all the farm, except one bush. There was a bush there with all oak. And when we grew up on poultry, and they called the farm Oak Grove Poultry Farm. My dad never had no education. He educated himself. He read books and became a good speaker, a very good speaker. In fact, he was pastor of a church at Emmitsburg for a while, and he would preach all over Detroit. And he also was, like I say, was in poultry, but he was a good farmer. I mean, a real good farmer. And of course, it brushed off to me. And if we grew wheat, you wouldn't see weeds. If we had a field, we wouldn't see weeds. We'd be in there hoeing, getting them out. So he became a real good farmer. Also, he became on the board of the Vegetable Growers Board. We used to grow peas, we used to grow sweet corn, we never grew tomatoes. But the Vegetable Growers Marketing Board fell under the sweet corn and peas and tomatoes. And tomatoes, at that time, the can cost more than what the tomatoes did going into the can. And so he went around, and he'd take me with him, and he would talk to the farmers, don't sign a contract on tomatoes. We're going to get you some higher prices on tomatoes. Because it really didn't make sense for the can to cost more than what was going into it. And finally he got it up. He spoke all over. He spoke down in Picton. That's down I don't know what county that is, way down by. And he was preaching all over about, and finally, the tomatoes people recognized him, and he got the price up where they started making money in tomatoes. Today, tomatoes are a money-making product, you know. But that's what he was speaking all over the place. Yes, he was good at it too. Yes, and that's what I don't know what that, but he got into the Farmers Hall of Fame in Essex. Yes, agriculture. Yep. When I was growing up, we had no hydro. We had no water in the house. We had a pump that went from the pantry down into the well outside of the side of the house. It was just a well. And you went and had a hand pump, and you could pump water into the house. I'd probably be about 6 years old when we got hydro, we got water into the house, uh, and it was only soft water. It was water that run off the roofs of the chicken houses, because our well was sulfur water. You could not use it in the house. It would eat up everything. I was going 4 years old. I had 4 broken arms, and I can remember every broken arm. And Dr. Nicholson fixed every one of them. And I had another broken arm when I was 6 years old, and I took that broken arm to school with me. And I think that's what made me a left-handed batter, because it was my right hand and I wouldn't stop playing ball. So I continued playing ball at school even though I had a broken arm. When he took that cast off, then I stayed left-handed batting, but I went back writing and everything with my right hand. And my left arm is a little bit longer than my right arm by about 1/4 of an inch. And maybe that's normal, maybe that's due to my broken bones, I don't know. I grew up on a farm, and I thought I'd always be a farmer. My dad we always had chickens. We had, would be what, 200-300 feet of hen houses, counting the upper deck and the lower deck. So that's what we did. Okay, when I was growing up, we was all horses, no tractors, all horses. My dad was very innovative when he had one of the first tractors around the neighborhood. He had one of the first thrash machines. And when they got married, my dad and mother got married, they eloped. And the Catholic people would have nothing to do with them. And the Catholic people lived all around us. Eventually, after he bought a thrash machine, he was thrashing for them. They all accepted him, and it worked out fine. And his first tractor he ever bought was a Alice Chalmers. And the next one was a Waterloo. And but when we were stooking, you had to thrash, and you had thrashing bees. You'd like to have 4 to 5 wagons teams come, and then you reciprocate with your team back to their place the same. And if somebody came with one man to pitchfork, you went back with one man. You always try to reciprocate whatever somebody did that you did for them. And the thrashing bee dinners were something else. Oh boy, every house I tried to outdo the other one, and you'd get some great dinners. Yeah, and you never washed up into the house. There was always a bench outside with a tub, towels, and soap, and that's where you'd wash. Sometimes people would give you hot water. Sometimes it wouldn't be hot water. It would just be water. And then you go in the house, eat, and after you come out and back out to the fields and thrash some more. That's the way it works. Finally, things changed on the farm. Back then it was thrash machines. Finally, combines came in. We thought that would never happen, but we ended up getting a combine ourselves. We got rid of the thrash machine, and when you got rid of the thrash machine, you no longer had to stook and tie wheat into bundles to go to the thrash machine. Everything, only thing, the combine that we got dropped bags off in the field. They'd be of 100, 120 pounds. You had to go along and pick them up afterwards. That was a pretty tough job. But nevertheless, we got used to it. We'd go along, pick them up, throw them on the truck, and take them into the barn. Our horses, the last team of horses was my team. When we were growing up, my dad asked Stan what he wanted when he turned 18, I think it was. He said, I wanted a tractor. He asked me what I wanted, and I said, I wanted a team of horses. So when he had a team colts coming along, the last team of horses on the farm were mine. That was a team of colts. We broke them, and that was my team. But we used them on the farm, yeah. We did a lot of husking of corn, standing in the field with a team of horses, just husking the corn alongside of the wagon, pitching it on a wagon, and when it got done, taking it to the house. It was a whole different life to what life would be today on a farm. 300 acres was a big farm back there, and we had around 300 acres. My mother and dad, they always went to market on Saturday. I remember when the roads were so bad, we had to get the horses out to pull the truck through the roads because it was just in the spring when the frost went out. We'd get the team out and pull the truck home. But they always went to market. They never fished. If you wanted to plant something, don't plant it on a Saturday because my mother was going to be on the market, yes. And then I went to market. I was looking after a stall when I was only be about 12 years old. My mother made me an apron so I could have the change in front of me, and I looked after a stall and she looked after a fall. The funny part of it was there was an economy lunch down the street about a block or so away, and you'd get beans, baked beans baked beans for 35 cents. And wieners and beans, 35 cents. I'd get that every Saturday, wieners and beans. And I'd be going down the street and there'd be some, I don't even want to call him a drunk, call him a hobo. You got any money? No, I don't have any money. Here's this money all jingling in my pocket. But I'd go get these wieners and beans. I remember going up north to in Michigan. One of my, I guess be my dad's or my mother's family passed away, and they took you up there, and we went into a nice restaurant, and they said, "What do you want?" I said, "I want wieners and beans." They didn't even know what I was talking about, but that's just what us used to. So I ordered wieners, and I didn't get wieners and beans. I don't know what I got. But one time, you could sell chickens on the Windsor market just as fast as you could butcher them. And there was chickens to be bought. We bought chickens all over the place, and Mom always had me go with her. I don't know why it was always me. Well, of course, Stan was in the Navy, and my dad didn't go. It was Mom. And we had these chicken crates, and she'd also take a scale, and we'd go to the farmers, and always had to be at night because you couldn't get the chickens during the daytime. They'd be on the roost, and you'd go in and pull the chickens out, put them in a cage, put them in a cage, take them home, then you'd have to dress them. We'd be going down the road, and Mama she'd be going, "Blessed be the tide that binds," and she'd be singing away, and I'd be sitting on the corner waiting to get to the farmer's house to load these chickens and get back. Then when you get back, you had to dress them out. Yeah, but you could just sell chickens like mad. We were doing this day after day after day. It was unbelievable. Yes, unreal. And if you went to the market and you carried a basket of chickens on your shoulder, when you sat it down, they'd all be around you trying to buy these chickens. That's what it was right at that point in time. Yes. We dealt with Silverwoods a lot, and we used to go to Silverwoods and get the skim milk off of Silverwoods, 10 cents a can for our chickens. And we'd let that sour and we'd give it to the chickens. Well, Stan went in the ditch coming home because you got 16 cans in the back of that truck, all hot, and they get real warm in that truck, and you fall asleep. I fell asleep about 2 miles from home, off and slid onto a ditch. Pop he didn't bawl me out or nothing. He just understood the situation. You left at 4 o'clock in the morning to do this. Anyway, Mom, she got doing with Silverwoods, and she'd buy cases of butter. And she'd bring them home, and she'd take the wrappings off, and she'd rewrap the butter into plain wrappers and sell it, because we had a big dairy farm. And she'd sell this butter as homemade butter. And everybody thought this was such homemade good. I stood at that stall and listened to this guy say, "Oh boy, you ought to try some of this butter. It is really good. It's homemade butter. You can't beat it. It's really homemade, really good. All it is Silverwoods butter." This went on for I don't know how long. When Stan and I'd get together, we'd laugh about this homemade butter. Emmitsburg was our closest town. It was 7 miles around. That's where we spent most of our time. That's where I spent most of my time playing ball, getting girls, and so on. Life over the years has been, I played a lot of hockey. Stan and I, that's my older brother, we made a hockey rink in our yard. There was no hockey rinks around then. We grew up on ice, and we put lights out on the yard, and neighbors all come and played hockey. Oh, they was wonderful. And so but we couldn't always do that because we didn't always have the right weather, but we had weather enough that year. We'd make a skating rink every year. We'd fill barrels up with water. When we got through playing hockey, everybody'd grab a pail and go out and flood the rink. That was ready for next night. And then all come back the next night. We had lights and a whole bit. And also, when I grew up, my dad let me quit school when I was 14. He let me drive the truck to take um, I guess it would be corn or roast to the mill and get it chopped. Would I have to go in the back way? Uh, I drove, I had a car before I was 15. I had my license the day I was 16. The day I was 16, my dad let me have the family car. I went to Windsor to Jackson Park. And I've owned a car ever since, and the Model A was quite a car. I remember going to town on the Model A, and it was icy. And there was 4 of us in the car, and we were going out of town. We spun around, we passed a car going backwards. Yeah, but it was quite the deal. Also, back then when I was playing ball, I played a lot of softball and I played a lot of hardball. Hardball was played on Sunday. Softball was played through the week. They didn't mind. My dad would come and play first base on softball. I've seen us go from we had a thrashing machine, and we'd quit at 6 o'clock and drive to Emmitsburg so we could play ball. He'd still have all his work clothes on. We'd playing ball, playing first base, and we'd play ball. He liked playing ball. My brother Stan got his leg broke playing ball. A guy slid in the home plate he was catching and broke his leg. My dad played ball. He loved playing ball. He played softball, even when he was 50 years old. And I played a lot of ball in school, but I also played a lot of ball, as I told you before, bouncing an Indian rubber ball off the cement foundation of our barn. We had a beautiful barn for doing that, a beautiful, nice, smooth yard. Also, I take those, we had 200 feet of hen houses. One was a 2-decker and one was a single-decker. And those, we'd clean those hen houses out, and I'd get those warehouses brooms, cut the handles off, and that was my bat for batting stones. And my dad, he just let me, we'd go out on the road at night and I'd bat stones by the hour. I could hit a Louis stone the size of a marble and never miss. And so he just let me play it. I could play outside after supper right till dark. And I remember when I was growing up, Stan started going out with Henry and Harvey Jones. He'd come get the car, and they didn't bother me. I'd just stay there, and I'd be throwing that ball up against the barn and catching it, and that was it. So I became a real good ball player just by training myself at the barn. And I wanted to play ball, but my mother and dad grew up a very religious family. We had no cards in the house, we had no coffee in the house, no tea. We were at church every Sunday morning, every Wednesday night, and every Sunday night. Unless you found an excuse to stay home, you had to go to church. Well, they didn't want anybody playing anything on Sunday. You're supposed to sit there and read the Bible or do something. I remember one Sunday I took a ball and I hit this softball, and I broke my brother-in-law window afterwards, Doris's boyfriend. His car was in the yard, and I broke his windshield. And my mother said, "That's what you get for playing ball on Sunday." Anyway, I had to cough up the money to put the new windshield in. But when I turned 18, I thought, I've got to play ball. And I went to Emmitsburg. And I found the manager and told him I wanted to play ball and be on the hardball team. He took me out to the park, and he hit fly balls for probably over an hour. And I could catch every ball, didn't matter where he hit it. He says, "You're going to be on the ball team." And I was on the ball team all the time. My dad, sneakily, I didn't know, would drive around to wherever the team was playing and watch us play on Sunday. And I didn't know he was doing that, but he was. Didn't matter where we were playing, they'd drive and sit in the background in the car and watch us play. There was a manager there from Emmitsburg. We found out there was having a ball school. I believe it was in Brampton. Anyway, he said I should go, and Bill Matthews and Bill Jones. 3 of us went down. I drove. I'm the only one that had a car. Always had a car. We went down there, and it was the Brooklyn Dodgers school, and they wanted me. Then at that point in time, Bill Waggle was playing ball in Jamestown, and his brother Don and Cliff were going to Jamestown, and they got home. "Harvey, would you like to go to Jamestown with us?" "Sure." So we went down to Jamestown, and Bill says, I'll get you a uniform. You can dress up and come on out on the field. So he got me a uniform. We went out, and I was shagging flies out in the field. And finally it says, Harvey, go on in bat. And when I went in and bat, I was hitting balls over the fence, just all over, the right and left, just going. And then first thing you know, I got called into the office, and it was Wish Egan there, who was a scout for Detroit Tigers, offered me a contract. Crazy boy, I should have never done that, but I did. There was no money. I should have worked there and got more money, but I was so anxious to play for Detroit. Detroit was our team to play. When my dad took us to a ball game, it was always Detroit. I watched Hank Greenberg play. I was at Detroit when Nolan Ryan pitched a perfect game, no hit, we were sitting up in the stands. Detroit was my team, so I got all excited when I could play for Detroit. Well, later when the Dodgers called me, I had to tell them, and they were disappointed, and I guess I probably should have worked one against the other, but I didn't, okay? When I came back from Jamestown, after I had signed, I got in an accident. A drunk came out of the road, plowed into the side of my car, totaled the car, and the gal with me got a broken leg. Her dad was a doctor, and he set the leg. I got 18 stitches in my knee, but I went back to Jamestown. I called and told them, oh, come on back down, you can stay with the team. I traveled with the team. I learned a lot about traveling with the team. And then when I went back in the spring, we had spring training at Hershey, Pennsylvania. And they wanted to send me to Florida. I was in love with Shirley at that point in time, and I was seeing Shirley. And I thought, you're not sending me way down to Florida. I'm too far from her. I can't do that. So I asked for a release to get back home. Yeah. Start farming. There was a lot more money in farming. But also I had another idea too. I thought I'd maybe like to be a Mountie. I went to Windsor to be a Mountie. They interviewed me and they said, sure, we're going to take you. We're going to send you out to Regina and get your training, but you got to get married for 8 years. I said, you're kidding, 8 years. And we got to okay whoever you marry. I said, forget that, I'm not doing this. Okay, I was in Amherstburg and I saw Shirley walking down the street. I really didn't know her, but I knew who she was. She was Nick the barber's daughter, his only daughter. She had 2 brothers, Bob and George and Shirley. And something said to me, that's the girl you're going to marry. Well, I didn't even take her out yet, but I asked her out. She'd only be 15, I would be 18. I asked her out. She says, I'll have to ask my mother. Well, I didn't want to ask her mother. I wasn't interested in your mother. I was only interested in her. No. So then I was turned. I got to be 20. I asked her out. She said, sure. So we started going together, and that's when I realized she was even more the girl than I thought she was. And we used to park along the river, and I don't know if you would call it parking and necking or just parking and talking or what. Anyway, we'd park and watch the boats go by. Might see some we didn't see, but anyway, I said to Shirley, and Shirley was Catholic, but her dad wasn't. Her mother was really strict Catholic, and so was her brothers. I said to Shirley, Shirley, I want you to know something. Yeah, I don't care if you want to keep seeing me or not, but I'll never be a Catholic. She never stopped seeing me, and we went on seeing one another, and she stopped going to confession. She changed her whole life and her whole thinking, I think. Okay, well, Shirley, when I couldn't get Shirley to convince to come to our church, and I certainly wasn't going to their church. But anyway, I was I wasn't going to be playing hardball anymore, but I was playing softball, and I was a key player in softball. And we were in the playoffs, and the guy says to Harvey, there was George Wago, Dave Burke, Chuck Bennett, Kenny Lang, anyway. We were all a bunch of young guys. It was a young team, and they said, and we were in the playoffs. They said, Harvey, they will never win this unless you're with us to be here. And I was down in Erie Beach with my dad. Every year at the last week of July, the church had a reunion, and Erie Beach was down in Erie Beach. They still have that going on. Anyway, I was down there and I was going to come. My dad said, well, take the car. No, I said, I'll hitchhike home. I got a ride into Chatham on the corner of number 2 highway then and Queen Street. Got dropped off and a car pulled along and when I reached for the handle, something says, Harvey, you'll never get to Amherstburg. And I don't know what happened, what the guy did or not. I couldn't tell you one thing about him. But we ended up in a cement culvert, and I remember the ambulance. I remember hearing him. I remember being loaded in the ambulance. I remember going into the hospital. I remember them taking me off the curtain, putting me in a bed. But I really wasn't hurt that bad. The next morning, gosh, I was down sitting on the nurse's desk, more interested in the nurses than I was in myself. I did have cuts on my face, just minor little cuts. Back then, there was no TV, it was all radio, and it was flashed over the radio in Windsor that Harvey Nicholson was in a bad accident in Chatham, and George Waggle, who was a real good friend, I played ball with, him and Shirley got together, and George says, I'm going down to see Harvey, you want to come? Sure. So Shirley came down to Chatham to see me. In the meantime, my mother and dad had come to the hospital, and I wasn't hurt. They took me back to the reunion grounds where the church camp was going. Well, they got there at the hospital, and I wasn't there. George says, well, let's drive out to the camp and see him. So they drove out to the camp, and I talked Shirley into staying. She said, well, I don't have any clothes. Well, of course, my sister was there, and my sister always had lots of clothes. And she says, I got lots of, all you need is a pair of shorts and a blouse or two around. So Shirley stayed. We come back home. Then she started coming to our church, and she learned that we weren't the cult that they thought we were. As far as we're concerned, we were a cult. She started coming to our church. And then the next year rolled around. She's going to come to the reunion, and she said, well, wow, what will I take? So she took my great big, I had a big suitcase. She took that and brought all her clothes down there to reunion, to Airy Beach. We called it Airy Beach at the time. Then we went back home, and I realized I had not even given Shirley a ring, and here I'm thinking about marrying her. We were going together 2 years now. I went to Windsor and I bought a ring. I was digging a basement down by my dad. He sold me an acre for $1. I was digging a basement for a house. Neighbors come along and asked what I was doing. I said, I'm digging a basement. And then I realized I hadn't even given Shirley a ring. So I went to Windsor and I bought a ring. I gave it to her. That's when things blew up. Shirley being Catholic, me being Protestant. Her mother told me right in the kitchen I'd never marry Shirley unless it was over her dead body. It was the talk of the town, I'm not kidding you. In the barber, Shirley's dad was a barber, it was in the barber shop, all over town. What's going to happen? Well, Shirley wanted me, I wanted Shirley. She didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. Her brother going to fight me, but we didn't fight. But he made her give her back the ring. She didn't give it back. She just put it in her pocket. And I decided on my own. I went to Windsor to the Prince Edward Hotel, which is not there today. But I went there to use the payphone. I called Elmer Sheehu, who Shirley got to know real well at the reunion at Airy Beach. She liked him, and I asked Elmer if he would marry us if we came there. He said he didn't like doing it, but he would since under our circumstances. So then I had to get a license. I couldn't do it in Amherstburg. Amherstburg was just like a buzz of bees as far as that's concerned. That was back then when the switchboard had to punch in each person and they could listen to every conversation. So I went to Kingsville, looked for the license man, and I walking up towards the town hall. The gentleman walking towards me, and I asked him, who would I contact for a marriage license? Well, he says, I'm the person you'd have to talk to, but you'd have to have the person you're going to marry with you. Well, that threw a kind of a bad thing situation. I asked him, could we meet you at your house and get the license? Sure. So he gave me his address, and I went back to Amherstburg and told Shirley what I was planning. She went along, well, what'll I do about clothes? I said, you still got my big suitcase? Yeah, okay, you load all the clothes you want to take, go for a honeymoon, in that suitcase. I'll come along and pick you up and pick you and get my tennis racket, and I think I had a pair of shoes there, and that's it, and they'll think we're done. Shirley's mother was sitting across the road at her sister-in-law's porch, and I pulled away like I was mad. They come over to Shirley and told her, "Oh, that's okay, Shirley, you'll forget all about him after a while." Shirley got on her bicycle, left a note on her pillow what she had done. We went down to my sister's Ida. She lived down the street. We left the bicycle with Glenn and Ida, and we went to Kingsville and got the license. And then we went to mall, stayed at my brother's house that night. Then the next night we stayed at Elmer Sheehy, who was going to marry us. And then we went to Elmer Sheehy wanted to go to CNE, was on then. So then he said, "Let's go down to my dad," and we'll stay there. And we did. The next morning we got married 7 o'clock in the morning, just 4 of us at the church. Okay? And for a honeymoon, we went to the honeydew after we got married for breakfast, and then we went to the CNE. We actually saw them. And Marvin Artie had come up to the reunion that Shirley and I were at, and Shirley really liked Marvin Artie. Oh, she was really taking him. So I said, "Well, would you like to go see them?" So she did. We went down to Marvin Artie's. Marv had an airplane. He took me up in his airplane. That sold me on the idea that I want to fly. So that got me in thinking about flying. Our little house, we built that in 1948. When Glenn and Ida, that's my sister, when they got married, they bought a house from, I believe it was Holiday, where you bought a house and it was all planned. You had to just put it together like a jigsaw cut. They hired Lloyd Grant, and he was their carpenter. Glenn worked with him. They built the house, and he was good. So when I wanted to build my house, I wanted to get him to help me, and Pops let me help him build that house. And that learned me a lot about carpentry, because I worked every day with Lloyd Grant, and we got along great, and we built the house. I dug the basement with a little Ford tractor with a dump on the back. You just drive in and take it done, drive it back out. So all the sides were sloping real good. And I got the blocks in, and then we put them down into the basement, into where the basement was going to be. And I hired a guy to lay the block, and I mixed all the mortar and hauled the block to him. Yes, all hard work. And when we got the house done, we were living at my mother and dad, because I planned on having a house all built before we got married and having a nice church wedding for Shirley. But the way things turned out, we couldn't last that long. It was blown all up. So we were living with my mother and dad. When we got the house done, we moved into it. Yeah. I changed batteries for the telephone company for Amherstburg, Kingsville, Harrell. Did I do Leamington? Anyway, a guy come to me and wanted to know if I changed the batteries. Back then you had batteries, there were box phones. You had batteries either in the basement or a small phone, or else up in the box on a phone. And you had to change the batteries, or else the phones wouldn't be any good. I changed the batteries for all of Amherstburg, and that's unbelievable. You just go say, "I come to change your battery." Well, how would they know today, But I'd go in people's homes, and in fact, I was in a home in Harrell or Kingsville, and this guy was working on a scaffold. He dropped off there. He dropped dead right there when I was there. I had to get the phone hooked up quick. Yes. But I guess he thought I was so good changing batteries, he asked me to keep going to different towns. So I went Amherstburg, and then Harrell, then Kingsville. I think he wanted me to do Leamington. I think, no, that's too far, so I wouldn't do it. Yeah. Yeah, that was just a winter's job, on the farm. What are you going to do? Yeah, at home. We didn't have much to do at home on the farm in the winter. Okay, my dad was pastor. My dad was an elder in the church. And in our church, well, still to this day, I guess, in that church, you could become a deacon, then you could become a priest, then you could become an elder, and then you could become a high priest. Okay? I was really interested in the church when the reunion was going on, when Marvin and Artie came up and visited us at the reunion, and we became great friends. Marv was in the priesthood, and Marv and Artie, they talked to Shirley a lot about the church too. Shirley was agreeing to, she didn't want to be a Catholic anymore. So when we decided we had to elope, there was no problem. So, but I was a priest at that time, but not and then I became an elder. When I was at that reunion, that reunion, right after that reunion, I asked my dad, I said, I want to go to Graceland College. And so I was farming, he said, well, I'll take the crops off, you go ahead and go. And Rod was, how old Rod? Rod would only be 50, I went in 51, 52. Rod was born in 51, he weren't very old. Rod was handled by everybody in the school. We went to Graceland, but Shirley took home economics and I took a regular course. And it was really a real education for me, don't think it wasn't. But I was just a priest at that point in time, and I think the church thought they were going to put me under appointment for the church. Graceland year was a really good experience for both Shirley and I, yes. I didn't realize what school was all about, how school really operated, and it done me a lot of good. I was never a good speller, a little better now than I ever was. My papers come back marked up terrible. They were awful. But I made it through. Out of 750 students, I stood 450, so I didn't do too bad. There was married couples there, because this is after the war. The war ended in 1945. So 1950, a lot of the veterans went back to school, and we had a club called Ball and Chain. If you were married, you were under the Ball and Chain. And I was under the Ball and Chain, and and we had a house we rented about probably 2 miles from the college. We didn't stay on the college. And I also got initiated into a club called the AUB Club. And the AUB Club, oh boy, they beat me so bad my bum side was black and blue, because you're under their thumb until you got into the club. I was supposed to go up, and George Knotts and I became great friends. Of course, a lot of us did. But George Knott, I was under him, and he says, you bring me up a coffee and a donut and wake me up. Well, I woke up too late. I went up and just pulled him out of bed, and he said, bend over, and boy, he let me have it. And this went on like this until you got accepted into the club. I got that hanging up around here someplace. And then he got through, he gave me this neat paddle. His name was George Knott, and he made a paddle with a knot in a paddle. He was really a good guy. But boy, there was one gal, there was about 20 Hawaiians that were attending the college as well. About 750 that was total attendance of the whole college. And this gal, we were at the entertainment center one day I should say, and she was quite a big gal. She said, I want to trade swats. You swat me, I'll swat you. Well, I bent over, she swats me, now it's your turn. So she bent over, and boy, I let her have it. And I said, oh, yeah, Kyle, we never thought you'd hit her. Well, that was the deal. So I let her have it, yeah. I was supposed to go back, and that's when I bought the farm. We were supposed to go back in August, and I knew we couldn't go back. Shirley was pregnant. That's when I bought the farm. In August and September, I think we finalized the deal. And I called down to Graceland and told them we couldn't rent that place for no more. And things changed. Shirley, I couldn't have Shirley having a baby down in Lamona, Iowa. So we bought the farm, and that's what put us in St. Thomas. In the church, I became an elder, and an elder is when you step up from a priest. And now I'm a high priest. We moved to St. Thomas in 1952. Oh, that's his name, Sinclair Russ. That's the name of the farm I bought, was Sinclair Russ. The farm was 200 acres, and a beautiful farm. You drove off a paved road, you drove about maybe 100 feet and you're right into your driveway. Maybe not quite 100 feet. Anyway, the farm was in 10-acre fields, and I didn't want that. When we were at home, at my home when I grew up, we took all the fences out. You can't have small fields when you got tractors, you're always turning. With horses, well, that was different. I cleaned all the farm up, took all the fences down, cleaned all the rocks out of the fence rows, and I worked and worked and worked. That was a terrible. I remember Mr. Mills, he was a member of Parliament, come along, stopped one day. Harvey, he says, you and I, we could really clean up this place, couldn't we? Yeah. Well, I was the one working. Anyway, that's what I did, and I got the whole farm all in one field. I divided in 4 fields of 50 acres. The yard and the barn came out of that one field, and I grew wheat, oats, wheat, clover, corn. I had 3, because you're supposed to give your farm a rest. Well, we found out you didn't have to do that when you want to put fertilizer down. That's when you could grow corn after corn. You weren't supposed to grow corn after corn. And so a lot of it was learning experience for me. A lot of it was learning experience all for the neighbors too, yeah. But I did get that farm all in one field. I tiled a lot more of it. It wasn't some tile, but I put more tile in. And beans, it was kind of a rolling farm. You only tiled down in the valleys where the water would run. Yep. Okay, I used to grow pioneer corn. In fact, Joe Bouchard, who also became a friend of mine, I think he was also born in September. But Joe became a pioneer salesman for Pioneer Seed. And I bought all my seed corn from Joe. I might say my dad grew Pioneer Seed when I was growing up. And they asked me to try something, and I did. I tried no-till corn, and it didn't work like we thought it would, but it still worked. And I did it on part of their suggestion and with their ideas too. We worked together on it. And we were probably ahead of our time. When I grew corn, when I put up, call it a leg, it's an elevator leg, and I was probably, as Don Williams said, I was probably 20 years ahead of my time. Because back then there was no legs around whatsoever. And I didn't know how to do it, I didn't know what I was doing, but I did it. And I didn't talk to no engineer. It had to all be on my own ideas. I had one bin up off the ground where a semi could come in, and he could load his truck. Even though I wasn't there, he could open it up and load his truck. I sold quite a bit of my corn also to, I couldn't feed all the corn I was growing. I sold quite a bit of my corn to, I believe it was Waterloo Elevators in Waterloo. They sent a big semi die and haul corn away, and I'd get a little better price for it. The reason I did all this, I was growing a lot of corn. I was hauling my corn into St. Thomas, getting it dried, bringing it back home so I could put it in a bin so I could feed my turkeys. Well, I got thinking, this is kind of crazy, hauling it in and hauling it back. So that's when I put a dryer in, put the building up, and put all this up, a leg up, so I could do it all at the farm. I had a gentleman doing my corn, and slow, he wouldn't show, he was a dairy farmer, he'd show up around 11 o'clock, and we were feeding him, and he just got in the field, and we got to call him in for dinner. This is going on, he's not getting no place. I had really good corn, really heavy corn. I said, I can see, well, I'll never get this corn harvest this year. So I went over to Don Williams. I said, Don, I need a combine to harvest corn. And I didn't have a lot of money, and I think I gave him $1,000 down or something. So he trusted me. I bought the combine, and I harvested our corn. And Thanksgiving, I went over and I laid $8,000 down in front of me. He said, Harvey, there isn't very many people could do that. And I was making money, I knew that, but I had to challenge myself. I had to get things done. And so, yeah. Then from then on, I had a combine right till I quit farming. Yeah. And the last year I was farming, I grew 350 acres of corn. Yeah. And when I bought the farm, I didn't have turkeys. I had a 40 by 80 foot barn and 30 by 50 off the, like an L shape or a T shape, whichever one you call it. And it wasn't fit for turkeys. We raised the barn. I put a new foundation under it. I put 4 floors in the barn, and I put an elevator in it. And the elevator is in the center of the barn, and that's where I raised my turkeys. I turned the silo into a feed place. I put the grinder in the bottom of the silo, and one time I had went out and just turned the switch. It was all automatic, and all the turkeys were fed. Yes, and we got there. When I didn't realize that we were infested by rats. And I'd go out and kill these rats. I'd go out and shoot these rats too. Yeah, but it was kind of fun in a sense. But I'd shoot them, and then I would go out after. We had one part where there was about a foot under the floor, and you look through there and see these rats. And I use small 22 shells and shoot these rats, and then pull them out with a rake and put them in a pail. I remember one time I looked out of the window of the house and I seen a skunk going across the yard. I just grabbed my gun, didn't put nothing else on, just what I had, my shorts, and went out and shot the skunk and went back in the house. Yeah. Also, I went to market, the St. Thomas Market, and the first time I went to St. Thomas Market, I took as many turkeys as I thought I could handle, but they were too large, and nobody would buy them, so I started cutting them in two, and I sold all my turkeys. I never went to the St. Thomas Market with turkeys on Thanksgiving. I didn't sell out. I had to have more turkeys, but I didn't have them. But I never dressed enough turkeys for Thanksgiving, even though I thought I did. Trying to outguess the public is not easy. So, but I enjoyed going to market. Lots of times I'd go to market. Johnson's had a meat stall. We'd trade off. He'd give me a roast and I'd give him a turkey, and I'd come back home with a roast of beef. But Shirley lots of times would bring me back turkey leg and a breast or something like that for dinner. Anybody that came to her house expected to eat turkey, and Shirley was an awful good cook, and I mean a good cook all the way around. Yes, yes. I got into turkeys because my mother and dad were poultry farmers. We always had a hatchery. My dad always had a hatchery. And we grew up on chickens. So finally they got into turkeys. My brother Stan got into turkeys, and my mother could see what was going, so they got into turkeys. And so I learned a lot about turkeys and knew a lot about poultry. So when I got into St. Thomas, I realized I got to have some money besides farming. You know, I didn't know how much farming would give me. So I thought the only thing I know is poultry. So I got raising turkeys. And when I started raising turkeys, I didn't have the barn fixed into 4 floors. I had just 1 floor on the one side, and then I had them run out in the field. Well, that's not work, so I decided to really go to work and do a job. That's when I raised the barn, put 4 floors in, an elevator. All this I did myself. I was my own architect, and it was all my own ideas. I had always had somebody working for me. When it come Christmas time, I needed probably around 15 people, 17 people. And that's what got me out of turkeys. I couldn't find the people at the end, and I just about wrecked my stomach, my nerves, trying to decide how am I going to get rid of all these turkeys that I promised I would order, that were ordered, and how am I going to do this? So that's really why I got out of turkey, got out of farming, yeah. I was killing myself on my feet, I'd say, yes. Okay, I turned the silo into a storage of corn, and I had it so it all came down to a little grind mill called a mix mill. The mix mill would only be about probably 30 inches wide, maybe 30 inches deep. And you could have different items come in. You could have corn come in one spout. You could have your I guess you might call your concentrate go into another one. That would be, and I had it fixed so that when it did, it augured up to the top floor, and then from the top floor, I had pipes where it fed down to each feeder. When a feeder got full, it moved on to the next feeder until all the feeders were full, and then it automatically shut off. That's how I ended up feeding my turkeys. It wasn't like that when we started. When we first started, we had to haul all the bags up on our back and dump them into feeders. I had big feeders that would hold probably 4 or 5 bags of feed at one time, and then it would come out the bottom, and the turkeys would eat out at the bottom. Also, for watering, I had eave troughs along the end of the barn, and the tap running, and it would on a float, and it would keep the water running always for the turkeys. In the wintertime, you had to leave it running slowly because it would freeze. Of course, after Christmas, the turkeys would be all gone, and you didn't have to worry about that. But up until then, you had to keep that water running or else the water would freeze. When I got everything rigged up really good, all I had to do was walk into the saddle, turn that mix mill on, walk out, everything was fed. Yeah, and it's pretty neat. But the biggest part, I guess, of the problem was all these promises of delivering these turkeys, and I wouldn't let anybody down. I had to make, if I told you I was going to have you 50 turkeys tomorrow morning, I didn't care who I walked over top, you're going to have those turkeys. But I never asked anybody to do anything that I wouldn't do myself. And I usually have pretty good workers. And they'd say, what time do you want me in the morning? And I say, 4 o'clock. And they come over at 4 o'clock in the morning, yeah, getting things ready. We moved to St. Thomas in 1952, and I think I got into turkeys in 53 or 54. But we didn't know the city, we didn't know the streets, and Shirley, she was taking phone calls for turkeys, and we had a lot of phone calls. And we had to deliver all these, and so we'd have some on such a street and so we just put them in a box and wrote it down. We didn't know where those streets were, and I didn't deliver. I stayed at home. And I had a couple guys deliver, and we had phone calls after, where's my turkey? Where's my turkey? And it was after midnight, but we said, don't worry, you're going to have your turkey. And it was awful. We just didn't know the city. It was just something you didn't learn. Well, then eventually I learned the city, and I knew how to divide the city into 4 quarters. I knew how to load the load, and I had every box numbered. First stop, second stop, and if I missed one, it'd be a stop and a half or a stop and 3/4. And then the box was there. When I stopped, the box was right there. That's how we loaded them in the van. I had a economy Ford van for delivery, and that's how we loaded them in the van, and then it worked out perfect. Otherwise, it was a mess. It was terrible. I think some people wanted to kill us, but after they tasted the turkeys, they thought it was pretty good. We delivered turkeys to all over, all the churches around in Port Stanley, in St. Thomas, Stark Club, Grand Central Hotel. There was a customer of ours all the time. Certain restaurants bought turkeys all the time. The hotel in Brantford used to buy 1.5 tons of turkeys at a time, and I'd take the van and load it and take them down there. I wanted a box, but I wanted my own slogan on the box, and I kept thinking and thinking and thinking, how in the world what am I going to do? I wanted something on my own. 5 o'clock in the morning, I hit Shirley on the rump, and I said, Shirley, I got it. Country's best city dress. And that was my turkey. So I wanted a turkey with a monocle and a top hat and a cane under his wing. And I talked to the box people, and they come out, and they brought me out a sample. I said, yep, that's it. So they come up, and that's my box, yes. And those boxes, there's probably lots of them still in the basements of St. Thomas, yes. Well, when you had young poults, you had what you call hoovers. The hoovers were nothing more than a big umbrella, metal umbrella, propane gas in there to keep the turkey warm, the little poults one. When I brought poults, call them poults, home from my brother, they'd be a week or 2 weeks old, no more. and I'd put them in there. Well, I brought some home, and we'd put them in this place, and all of a sudden, I had Bill Powers working for me, come running in, Harvey, the barn's on fire. And I rushed out, and it was on fire where the poles were. That would be under the 30 by 50 foot part, and that's where I always brood my turkeys, in that part. I says, don't open nothing up, keep everything closed up. I called the fire department, and they came, they got the fire out. But I lost quite a few of the turkeys, but I also saved quite a few of the turkeys. But, you know, it wasn't, some people might think I was trying to get out of business, but I wasn't trying to get out of business, because I just kept right on going. So, yeah, that was very disappointing, hard. I played at Timpkins Golf Course for a long time in St. Thomas. And Jack Pullen was the pro, and Jack had me on the team to play against Union, and we beat them, yes. And I was always real proud. And then when I joined Union, there used to be a guy come out from London, and we'd play together. He was good, I was good. It was quite good. I remember though playing a guy. I don't know what we're playing for, but we're on 1, 2, 3, about the third or fourth hole. And when I hit my ball, it was on the green. He hit his ball, it only landed about 20, 30 feet in front of the tee off. Next one he hit went right in the hole. Yeah, I never forgot that. But Union Golf Course is quite a golf course, yes. When I decided I'm going to do something, I really got into it. Just like golf. We had a walnut tree in the farm, and I hung a tarp up, and I'd hit golf balls into that tarp. I had a cornfield right there, and I'd hit golf balls out in the cornfield, and go out and pick up. You might hit out maybe 50, 60 golf balls. You don't go back out, and you only maybe find 40. Next time you go back out, you might come back with 50. But when the corn got larger, I couldn't do that. But I had this tarp up. It was just hitting the balls and practice your swing into this tarp. And of course, at that point in time, I belonged to St. Thomas Golf Course. And Jack Pullen thought I was pretty good golfer, so he had me on the team. And I golfed quite a bit with Pete Slaughter. Pete Slaughter was cross-handed golfer. He batted cross-handed playing golf. And he liked golfing because he was fast and I was fast. So we'd go around that golf course, that St. Thomas, Timpkins St. Golf Course in no time. And yeah, Pete was about a 2 or 3 handicapper. I was about a 12. But he enjoyed playing with because I was fast and he was fast. And then I played at the Early Bird, and Union always had an Early Bird tournament. They still do, I think, yeah. I played in that. I wouldn't win it, but I played in it. I enjoyed playing in it. And if I played in that more than once or not. 6 children today is a good-sized family, but 3 boys and 3 girls is a nice family. They're all born outside of Windy and Rod, or the rest were born in St. Thomas. Yeah, I think Shirley, we really thought we'd have 4. We ended up with 6. Shirley loved being a mother. Shirley was a good cook. And I don't know if I was a good father or not, but here we are. And when I had the turkeys, they had to work. Yes, they had to work. They helped move turkeys down on the elevator. And yes, I don't think I ever regret having a big family, no. And I made pretty good money in turkeys. I could dress them good. When they went to church, they were dressed well. When I was on the school board for the Cole School with just 3 of us on the board. Mr. Rollins come out to me, and I was out working at the farm, and he says, "Harvey, I'd like for you to work. Good township board's going to come in now, not just the small, and you'll be central school." I said, "Mr. Rollins, I don't know whether I should do that. You might find out how I'm not very smart." Well, he wanted me to run. I run, and I got on there. And my name is on the school in Sparta and the school in New Sarum. And I got there, and then they run county, and I run county, and I got on the county board. And they wanted me to be chairman for the county board, and I thought, no, I can't do that. I'm not that smart. I can't spell. I can't spell. Or else they had me chairman of the county board. And I learned how to fly. When I moved to St. Thomas, the airport was only what, about 3 miles away. I went over there, and Jim Mayer or Jim Mance taught me how to fly. He said the only one guy he ever taught that fast as I learned how to fly, because I could go every day. I wasn't working. Got my license, and then after a while I bought an airplane. Yeah, and then I realized I'd never have enough money to take all my family up. This is no good, so I sold the airplane. But I think I took all the family up, the ones that I had. I don't know if Michael was along yet or not, but I took Rod up, I took Nancy up, Nancy was with me when we went down to Emmitsburg and had a little accident with the airplane. Yeah. We flew to my brother's farm on, I don't know what road that would be, the McKay's side road or road. He had a farm, 25 acres farm. We landed in the wheat field there, went up the house, then we went to my other brother's in Emmitsburg and landed on his wheat field and taxied right by the house. That's fine. We went out to my dad's place, who lived on 18 Highway, and there was a little field behind his house, and this was in the spring of the year, and of course there was no tile there, so when I set down the plane, the wheels sank in the mud, the nose went up in the air, and the propeller got cut off on one side. So we we had the fire department there, we had the police there, we had an ambulance there. I couldn't figure what were they all so excited about. I wasn't excited. So we pushed the plane back up, and I got my dad's car, went to Detroit, bought a new prop, went back home, put it on. I thought, this might be hard to fly this airplane out of here. So I had my dad drive Nancy over to my brother's farm. I went along the ditch bank with the plane and gunned it real fast with the brakes on, released the brakes and took off. Went back over and picked up Nancy, and we flew back home. Yeah. When I bought the farm at St. Thomas, I didn't play much ball. I played ball in St. Thomas for 1 year, but I mostly concentrated on farming because I had to look after the family. I had to make money to feed the family. When we lived at St. Thomas, I coached a lot of junior, kids baseball. I don't know if were you in there, Rod, or not? Richard was playing. I forgot and left Richard at Union one time. Got home, where's Richard? He's not with me. I had to go back to Union and get him. I had this big silo which I wanted to put the grain in, and I decided we should paint it. Well, how am I going to paint it? I made a Bolsom's chair, I guess you might call it. I'm sitting in there, and I had a John Deere 60, which had a hand clutch, and Rod was pulling me up on the side of the silo to paint, and I'd go up so far, and then he'd have to let me down. And Rod had a hard time with that clutch. One time I thought I was going to go flying off, and that was crazy. The stupidest thing I ever did in my life, and try to paint that silo with him running a tractor. Rod was just a kid. He wasn't very old. And here I am, my life is up there on that Bolsom chair and him running a tractor. I don't know how old you'd be, Rod, but you weren't very old. I've done so many crazy things, it's pitiful. I'm not kidding you, yes. I came home from London. My stomach was just going crazy. I came home from London, I think about a ton of ice in the bag. I had to have crushed ice for the turkeys, keep them cold when you dress them. I walked the house, I said, Shirley, I'm not doing this no more. What are you going to do? I said, I don't care what I do, but I can't do this anymore. So that's how I got out. Now, it'd have probably been better if I had sold the farm and kept the turkeys, or got rid of the turkeys and kept the farm. But I just decided to get out, so I got out, yeah. And Alger Walcarius came along and wanted to buy the farm, so we come to an agreement and I sold the farm. 3 years later, I probably would have got about $500,000, rather than what I sold. I sold it for close to $170,000. I could have probably got $500,000. That was a big price back then, but things just jumped. When I moved here to Chatham, I could have bought houses here for 50, 53,000, 55,000. In 3 years, there were 100, 125,000. That's how things changed. My friend, and when I quit farming, that's when I had an auction, and that's when Les Shackleton asked me if I'd like to be partner in auctioneering. But I think I had the Red Barn bought by then or something, I decided. Yeah. We sold the farm in 1968 or 69. I moved to the lake here in 1970. We looked at a number of houses in Chatham, and every time we look at a house, Shirley and I say, oh my gosh, the neighbor's right next door. We weren't used to that, you know. And finally I ended up buying a house out at the lake, and which really was a nice place. Red Barn was a chain, and there was 1, 2, I think there was 3 in London. And Harry and Eleanor were great friends of ours. And Harry kept raving about having a red barn. We're having a red barn. When Harry's sister, Shirley, no, not Shirley, Madge, her and Jim opened up a barn in the Bahamas. Harry and Eleanor went down there, and boy, I guess they were turning over money pretty good, you know. So anyway, I thought, well, what could I do if I sell this farm? I'll buy a Red Barn franchise, and it was a franchise. And you bought the franchise, and they put the building up. You never really owned the building, you just owned the franchise. So I bought the franchise and moved into the Red Barn in 1970. We moved down here, and I had the Red Barn for, I don't know how many years, a few years. Shirley made out all the checks. Shirley was secretary. I was president of the company. I formed the company. And I never did work at the Red Barn. I always had a manager, day manager, and a night manager. I might go in there and maybe help make fries or something like that, but I never, Rod worked there. He's pointing, he worked there, yeah. Yeah. McDonald's was coming into Chatham, and I thought, that's not a very good idea, because you know how good McDonald's, how big it. So I sold the Red Barn to Harvey's. But then when I sold the barn, I dissolved the company. Now what am I going to do? So I went, they need a driver instructor, yeah. So he took me out for a truck to see how good a driver was. He come back and said, I can't teach that guy nothing. So I became a driver's ed, but that was a terrible job. Going around the block, same block, same thing. Crazy. But anyway, I had some funny incidents. I think I told you the other day, I had one lady, I went there to pick her up, and I don't know what language it was, but it was a different language. And I went to the door and knocked on the door, and the guy come to the door, and he goes back in, she don't want man, she want woman. And they were in there arguing away, and said, okay, this time you can take her, but no, next time, no man, woman. So I took her out. She says, I don't know how to park. I said, I'll show you how to park. So I went around and I learned her how to park and everything. When I took her home, she said, make sure you come back, she says. And so I took her all through her driving, yes. Yeah. But what a miserable job. We living on the water, and decided, I was reading all kinds of books about sailing. I decided I'm going to buy a sailboat. And we looked all around for a sailboat. And I thought, Shirley thought I was going to buy this 25-foot CNC. And the guy called up and said, yep, you can have it. I said, no, I'm not going to take it. And then I went and seen a 27-foot CNC in Toronto, I don't know, sometime out of Toronto. And I talked to the guy and I made an offer, and no, and then I'm sitting at the supper table and the phone rang, and I said, that's the guy who's going to sell me the boat. Got the phone, and it was him, you can have the boat. So I bought the boat, and I was going to leave the boat there and sail it home. I can't do that. So I got a hold of Alan Hill, who owns the park where we end up living, he used to bring mobile units in, and they'd take the wheels off, and then now it's not a mobile, it's a house, because you couldn't leave a mobile, and they had a law. So I went and seen Alan Yes. He said, we got 4 wheels, 2 sets of wheels coming off a trailer in Merlin. You go get them. I think it cost me $100. I give them. And then I went and seen a guy in Blenheim, the blacksmith shop, and I forget his name, an older gentleman, to build me a trailer. He built me a trailer, just a flatbed trailer, and I got a cradle for the boat, and I went down to Toronto, and Richard and I went down there, and we brought the boat home. And I parked it in my yard. And then I decided that I wanted to do something to the boat. I wanted to put 3 feet on the stern. So I enclosed the whole boat with, I had 4x4, I think, 4x4 poles, and I put that with heavy mill plastic. And I'd go out there, and I had worked on it all year round, and I had a platform so I could walk right around the boat. You didn't have to bend down or nothing. And I took a grinder and I went inside first, and I reworked her inside. I changed it in, put all teak, changed the table, changed the whole bit. And then I decided I'm going to add 3 feet to the stern of the boat. I took a grinder, and you start grinding. Boy, don't you think that takes nerve. You have to grind the fiberglass down. And then I had a wooden stern built to fit there. And you put that on, then you put your fiberglass over top of that. Then after you get done, you knock that wood all out, and there's you got your fiberglass on the boat. Well, now I got to get the boat painted. And I wanted it all gripped, so I got a hold of Paul, who was a painter for International Harvester in Chatham here. He lived in Cedar Springs. He came and painted that boat for me. I think it only cost me $100 all grip. Unbelievable, unbelievable, you know, when you think about it. And it turned out really nice. And then I decided I wanted to put a bowsprit on it, and I the boat ended up to be over 37 feet long when I got the bowsprit on, and 3 feet on the stern. Yes, and I moved it was quite a boat when I got done. I didn't know what to call the boat. I forget what the boat was called when I bought it. Of course, when you all gripped it, everything was taken away because it was all covered up. And I just kept thinking, oh, I want something that when the wind blows, it goes. So I thought, Wendigos. When the wind blows, it goes. And that's so I called it, Wendigos. Yeah. When we first started planning this trip, I started planning it at Christmas in 1983. Shirley thought I was crazy, and of course she thought I was crazy lots of times, but anyway, we left out of Wheatley, and Shirley, oh, it was rough. I left on my birthday on 1983, on my birthday, September the 6th. Oh, it was rough. It was a wild day. But I decided if I was out in the lake, I'd have to sail in this, so sailed with it anyway. So we went out there. Shirley got sick going across the lake. We were going to go across to Vermilion. We couldn't do that. The wind was against us. We'd be fighting it all the way. So we went to Cleveland, and when we went into Cleveland, there was dead limbs coming down the Rocky River, coming down there. So we stayed at Cleveland that night. Then we left, and we stopped and anchored off of Fairport. And then eventually we head across the lake over to go across through the canals. Going through the canal is very easy. Going down, the water's going out, so you're just floating down. Coming up, you'd have to have 3 people. You couldn't do it with 2 people. But going down, the water just goes out, and you're just dropping down, so easy. We sailed across Lake Ontario, and we'd always stop at different ports every night. I didn't stay all night. And before we got to Oswego, the port before we got to Oswego, I think we took our mast down, and because from then on you had a motor, there was bridges you couldn't go through. And we couldn't raise our mast until we got into the Hudson River. We went through 80 locks in that trip, going back and forth. When we get to into the Hudson, you put the mast up, and when we put the mast up, everybody would help. And there was two other boats, or American boats, and we kind of sailed with them all the way, and we got to know one another. Going down into the Hudson, we anchored outside of New York. Willie got his anchor caught. He could not get it up. No way could he pull that anchor up. So I said to Shirley, I said, I've got to go over in that boat and help him. Well, she never liked to be alone anytime, but I says, just keep motoring around, and she dropped me off. I went over and I looked down, I pointed around, finally I figured out what was the matter. His anchor was under a great big cable, probably a communication cable. So I says, Willie, have you got a hook and a rod? Yep. So we got that down there and we lifted up and I got the anchor back out and away we went. We went down all the way, we all traveled together, and then we parted in Florida, and I never saw them again. We went to the Bahamas. When you go to the Bahamas, you don't leave in the daytime, you leave at night. So you're sailing across at night so that when your morning comes, you can see where you're at. Otherwise, if you sailed in the morning and come night, you wouldn't know where you were. So I think there was about six boats going across that night to the Bahamas. And we left at 9 o'clock at night, and we went across there, and it was daylight in the morning. And they had all these paraphernalias, the radar. They got in the wrong place, and I said, they're going wrong. We got to go over here. We went in the right place. And the Bahama waters are very shallow. They're not very deep. You got to be careful where you go. Then we went across to one of the islands, and we met Herb and Dorothy. And Herb and Dorothy, we kind of took a shine to us and we to them. But they had a double keel boat that would sit on the bottom when the water went down. Ours was just a single keel. If it went down, you start leaning. We were in this little cove, and I mean it was a small cove. And so Herb says, let's go down to Green Turtle or someplace. Well, they went out, and the wind was blowing, and oh my gosh. I had 3 anchors out keeping us up from going up against the shale. And Shirley was on the motor, and I was pulling up anchors, and Shirley was really good. Shirley was not a sailor, but Shirley was an awful good mate. I'll tell you that much right now. But she wasn't a sailor, but she was an awful good mate as far as doing things. And she looked after the motor, and we got out of there. But Herb and Dorothy was smiling because they were just a shallow boat because they had double keel. But we traveled around with them for probably a month, maybe. And we really became good friends. In fact, such good friends, on the way back, we went up to their place and visit for a while, beyond where we're supposed to come to pick up the Hudson to come back. We also found a couple we were anchored in another cove. It was a gal. They had a 32-foot boat. They both had cancer. And they were told they weren't going to be living in probably a year. They said, well, they might as well go sailing, and that was 3 years ago, and they were still going. Shirley would be baking cakes all the time, and they got in on every cake. They just loved to come over and have cake. We enjoyed the company, too. Yeah, Shirley loved working down on the gallery and cooking, and she was good at that. All we had was a 2-burner alcohol stove, no oven, and she was good. Shirley was really good. She loved that. She'd bake bread, she'd do everything. Yes, she was good. I don't know, we decided to come back. We're on our way back. We also made friends with a big boat, 50-foot. Anyway, he found out that I had never dove for conch. Harvey said, I'm going to teach you how to dive for conch. So I was diving. I'm never a water bug, never was good for water. He taught me how to dive for conch, and we became good friends with him. On our way back, he heard us on the radio, and he says, Harvey says, if you can make it into the harbor, he says, we're going across tonight, you can go with us. So we made it back in harbor, and we went across with them, and we came into Florida on the way back into West Palm Beach, I think it was. Then from then on, we were on our own coming home. And we came back a little different way. We came back through, we put our mast up at, took it down, we put it up at Tonawanda. That's where we put the mast up. Mm-hmm. We came back in the lake area again. Shirley got sick. She got sick going across because it was so rough when the first day we went out. She got sick coming back in the lake area. It's a little bit rough there too. Yeah. And I kind of like rough water, but she didn't like rough water as far as sickness goes. So then we're coming home, and we're coming across Lake Erie, and I says to her, I says, you know, it's all over. Yeah, I know, she says, but she thought I was crazy when we left. She says, the greatest trip we ever made. Mm. Yes. But when I got home from that trip, we got back in June in 1984. I got a call from Chuck. Harvey, my son's bought a big 50-foot sailing boat in Florida, and you're the only man I would ever trust to bring that boat home. Can you do that for me? I said, Chuck, I just got home. I've got back into the company. I can't do that. No. So I never did. No. Yeah. Oh gosh, I've sailed on that Lake Erie. Oh, you can't believe it. You can't believe it. No. Worst times are on Lake Erie. Yes. I went out and sailed with Richard on out in the ocean. Oh, what a drag. You get on Lake Erie, you got these waves going at you and bouncing around. That's what I like, yeah. But Lake Erie can be rough, and I enjoy the roughness, but I don't need to be that rough. But we were coming back from Port Stanley one time when a storm popped up, and boy, I'll tell you, it blew. It really blew. I went up to trying to bring the sail down, and the shackle hit me right here in the lip, and got blood running around my face, and I'm bringing the sail down. And Karen and Michael was with us. Anyway, they were down below, and Shirley, and I'm sailing this boat, and I'm letting it run with the storm rather than to fight it. Boy, I tell you, I had waves probably as high as this out there in the middle of the lake. And I run till it got down, and then I put the motor on, and we had the motor. And I come back in the area, old trees were down. It was a terrible storm. And I just opened the hull. I say, it's a good boat. It is. It was a good boat too. Yeah, that's just the way it is. When the church changed a lot of its tactics, I kind of give up on it. And I still hold my card though as a high priest. They came out to my house one day at the lake, one of the head persons of the church, and along with John Shears, who lives in town here, with the idea they're going to take my license away from me. I said, I don't care what you do whichever you want. I said, I don't care. So they never did take it. But the church wanted some more money from me. I used to send quite a bit of money to the church. They sent me a letter, if you don't send us money, we're going to stop you from marrying people. They sent a letter to Queen's Park in Toronto and stopped me from being able to marry people. Because I married quite a few people, but I don't. I married Rod and Jen. When I come to Blenheim, actually the big course, supposed to be the big course, it was Maple City out here. But I didn't. I joined Blenheim course, and I was just walking and pulling my cart for a long time. Then I bought this electric cart. It was all redone. Boy, it's beautiful, beautiful. I built a box on the back for Ginger to ride around on it. Everybody just loved Ginger. They didn't care about me. They'd come, where's Ginger? Where's Ginger? Anyway, well, I went around on that for a long time, riding around that golf cart. And Blenheim was a pretty nice golf course. Yeah, I enjoyed golf. Shirley tried it. Shirley says it'd make you cuss, but she didn't think much of golf. But what Shirley also was library at the place where Wendy worked, Southwest Regional Center. She went out there and worked in the library there. Yeah, she worked there and she got her 10-year pin or something going out there working there. Yeah, she enjoyed it. Shirley enjoyed the books, and Shirley was good. Yeah, Shirley was very quiet, but Shirley was very good. And I golfed around, but I couldn't understand. I went with sometimes I went up to a golf course up by Esquesco, and I couldn't figure what I didn't figure what I couldn't figure what's the joy of just going around golfing different golfing my own golf course. That's all I cared about. But I would go. Somebody'd ask me to go, I'd go, but I couldn't figure out why. Yeah. And I golfed a lot with Ron Beavis. I golfed a lot with Diane Pogue. In fact, Ron Beavis was with me when I got my hole-in-one. Well, I can't remember but I know it was on a par 3 hole on Blenheim course. Yeah, and Ron Beavis was with me. Diane was there too as well. Yeah, she got more excited than what I did. I don't get excited about a lot of things, you know. I don't know why, but I've never been one to get really excited about things. I just take life as it is and let it go at that. I don't like the idea of rubbing something in on somebody else too. So yeah, I don't know whether I would have ever made a good ball player, whether I could be mean enough to do that, you know. So I thought, well, I went and seen Agri Urban Buildings then, and want to know if I could be a salesman for them. And you weren't really a salesman you were a salesman, you weren't a salesman. They had, when we first started, there was 5 of us. Charlie Thomasak, Jack Baggs, Keith Elliott, Paul Reynolds, and they reorganized the company to take me in because they already had organized the company with 4 people. They reorganized it to take me in. Charlie, I was in the plastic business with Charlie Gray. Jack knew Charlie Gray real good. So Charlie went to Jack Gray went to Charlie Gray to ask him, how about Harvey? Well, Charlie says, I sure would rather have him with me than against me, I can tell you that much. Because if I was going to do it, I'd probably went and sold barns for Beaver Lumber. So anyway, they reorganized the company, and that's where I retired from. But I had Essex County, Charlie had Kent County, Jack had Lambton County. We all had our own counties to sell barns into. And we mostly sold barns, no houses. We did renovate the church at Wabash. We built the arena in Dresden, but under a subcontractor. Not that we weren't the original contractors. The company was. Then we had a company called I was president of the company. CN, selling snowjacks. Snowjacks were on the roof to keep the snow on a metal roof from sliding down. They made me president, and I was on the company. The company was out of Pennsylvania, and so then I wasn't selling buildings. I was working 1 day a week, every Wednesday, and every morning I got up, it was Wednesday. And I'd go over there, and I made up my own check, and I'd only sometimes go half an hour. And when I dissolved, I called the company in Pennsylvania and told them I was retiring. They wanted me to take over the snowjack business, and I says, no, I really don't want it. Shirley and I went to a lot of these conventions, both her and I. And then I realized she got Alzheimer's and it was really tough. So, and I was out of Agri Urban when she got the Alzheimer's, and so I didn't want to travel. I traveled when I got the RV. I bought my road track when I was with Agri Urban, and we traveled together when we were there. I was pitching a lot of horseshoes. I pitched horseshoes in Columbus, Ohio. That was to a world tournament. I pitched a lot of horseshoes. Lamo, Ohio, up into Saskatchewan, into Dawson City, Victoria, BC. I pitched horseshoes all over the place. And we always took the RV and we'd stay in the RV. We pitched a lot of horseshoes in London. And actually, it worked out real good. I didn't know nothing about horseshoes, but I was always looking for something. We went up to Bob Cajun to visit Carol, who was Richard's wife. She was up there with her in-laws, and Bob was her stepfather. They said, Harvey, come on out, I got a horse. He just had a stake in each end, no pits, just throw. On the way home, I said to Shirley, I'm going to build a horseshoe pitch. Well, I didn't know what to call. I called L. Weiberg in Blenheim. How far should the horseshoe pits be apart? Well, he says, come on in and play horseshoes here. We'll find out all about it. I said, I've never played horses. I probably couldn't throw any ringers. That don't matter. Come on in. So I went, and I probably only threw maybe 3, 4 ringers out of, out of 50 shoes. I went home and I built a horseshoe shooting pit, you might say. Oh, a beautiful setup. And I wasn't working. I retired. I would throw about 1,500 shoes a day. I kept track of every shoe, every 100 shoes I threw. I wrote down every time I got a ringer. I wrote them down. I lost weight. I got so thin they thought I was sick. The neighbors got so mad, could hear ding, 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 ding all the time, and it got on their nerve. And I became a pretty good horseshoe pitcher. Al Wright and I, he was good, I was good. We'd play 5 games, 7 games, and he might win 4, and I might win 4. He might win 3, and I would win 2. And this went on all the time we're living. And I saw Mrs. Bovey in Blenheim. She says, do you hear what happened to Al Wright? And I thought she was going to tell me he was in an accident. She says he's got cancer. And she says he's not going to live. So I went and seen him. I saw him in the hospital on the last day of April, and at noon and 2 o'clock, Kathy called me and said, Alan's dead, died, yes. And I had nobody then to pitch horseshoes with after that. I sold the place out, the lake out the place in 2000, and so that I was done horseshoes. And I didn't play horseshoes after Shirley got Alzheimer's either, no. My life changed after Shirley. My golfing stopped, the whole thing all stopped after Shirley had Alzheimer's. Yes, terrible disease. But I bought my motorcycle when she had Alzheimer's, and she got on the back. And I'd always say, you know where you're at? Yep, right behind you, yeah. But I didn't realize what she had until a little later on too, how bad it was. When we went out to the BC on the motorcycle, she had Alzheimer's, yes, yeah, too bad. And when we traveled, Shirley kind of enjoyed the RV, but then when we went to Florida. The last time we went to Florida wasn't real good. Shirley wasn't really with it, and we come back and we went out to BC, and Shirley wasn't with it, so I sold the RV, yes. But we went to Alaska, we went up to Dawson City and stayed at, actually Karen and John had moved to Dawson City. We went up and just parked behind their place and plugged in, and we'd have breakfast and dinner at their place, but we'd have lunch just in the RV. But the last time we went, I asked Shirley to fix a little lunch. She had no idea what I was talking about. I come home and sold it, yeah. Then I bought the motorcycle. I bought a Honda 2000, not a Honda, 1500 Honda. It was a 6-cylinder. They're real quiet. It was a big bike. I had it weighed at Thompson's elevator in Blenheim. It weighed 1,300 pounds. So with 2 of us on the thing, you had to hold that up when you come to a stop. That wasn't easy. Couldn't let it lean on it. And then Ginger was on the back. I made a box for Ginger. And Shirley I wasn't used to riding a boat that big. I rode around Chatham to parking lots, school lots, all over till I thought I could handle it good enough. So finally I said, okay, Shirley, get on the back. And we rode about 5,000 kilometers just riding around here. And July the 8th of that year, we took off for BC. I had a trailer, yeah, and we could stop and have a little picnic if we want or do what we want. But Shirley had Alzheimer's when we was going out there, yeah. But as long as she was with me, she was quite content, yep. We parked the bike out in front of the Empress, and Ginger, of course, was in the box. Everybody's petting Ginger like mad. Then we went out to Richards. And we got out to Richards, and she says, she really didn't know who Richard and them were. She said, let's go home. I said, Shirley, we just got here. This is your son, daughter-in-law. So, but it was just the way it was, yeah. And the last, when we were living out at the park on Queen Street, Woody and Diane would come and stay with us. We had 2 bedrooms, and they were at our place, and we'd always have breakfast. I have breakfast for them in the morning, and then 2 weeks later, we were out the way. We went up to Bill and Ruth's place up at Wingham, and from Wingham we went around the top and went around to Woody and Diane's. That's my oldest brother's son, and they lived in just outside of Lakefield, and they had a nice supper for us, and I took Ginger outside, and Shirley comes outside and said, "Who are those people?" Shirley had no idea who they were. Yeah, and they were just at our house 2 weeks ago. So things were not good, but I took care of it. And then when I realized that, that's when I sold my golf cart and decided I've got to look after her. So that's what I did, yeah.
What happened?
Wendy wanted a horse real bad. Wendy really wanted a horse. I really bought the horse more for Wendy than for myself. She wanted a horse real bad. And when I bought the horse, the girls took the horses more than the boys. Wendy took to it. And I bought the horse. I broke the horse. And when Wendy got on that horse, you'd think that horse knew Wendy was there all the time. I got that horse, so I had her on the interval. You've seen how they'll work a horse around the interval. And I could say, come, and the horse, Shadiva would come to me, and I said, okay. I'd walk, you come with me, and she'd walk behind me. So she was really, and so I think that's why when we sold them, she missed that, and when she broke out of where we sold her, and she knew how to get back to our place, that's where she was going. So I'm going back to where I know Harvey and Wendy are in them, and got hit by a car. Yes, going back to where she wanted to be. Yep. Then I think that's what Shirley's too. Shirley had Alzheimer's. Well, every time she'd get away, she was going to Amherstburg. You know, back to where she lived. We were sitting in the living room one day, and Shirley said to me, "Can I ask you something?" "Sure, go ahead." "Will you take me to see my mother?" I said, "Shirley, your mother's been dead for about 10 years. "I didn't know that," she says. But she wanted to go to Amherstburg, see. And when she got away from us here at what's the franchise up the road there? Anyway, she got away from me there. She was heading for Amherstburg. Every time she got away, she was heading for Amherstburg. Because that's where she grew up and that's what she remembered, you know. And when she'd get away from me out here at the park, she would get on the highway, she's walking. She thinks she's going to Amherstburg. I have no idea where it was, where she's going. Yeah. So that's about the way it is, and so, yeah, I think about that. Not good. But as long as she was with me, she was happy. She was right behind me, you know. And she never taught. And then when we went to go to North Carolina to a motorcycle rally, I knew it was going to rain. We put our rain gear on at home. I had her put it all on. I put all mine on so that when it started raining, we didn't have to stop and change and put rain gear on. We had it on. She kept saying to me, "You're getting wet. Harvey, you're getting wet. You're getting wet." I said, "Shirley, I'm not getting wet. It's just the coat on the outside. I'm not getting wet. I'm nice and dry." And she kept saying that all the way. "Harvey, you're getting wet. You're getting wet." But she hardly ever talked. Yeah. So that's when she got away from me down in Columbus, Ohio, and she was trying to get out of the gate. I don't know where she always thinks she's going when she got away, you know. Whether it's Amherstburg or where she thought she was going to get to, don't know. I have no idea. So, yeah. Life's not easy sometimes, Ezra. My life's been good all the way around. I also find that when I moved to Chatham, my life changed completely. And Shirley got sicker and more Alzheimer's. Of course, it changed more. Yeah. I was in the coffee shop downtown in Chatham, trying to think, well, what else can I do here around Chatham? And I seen a little ad. They needed shuffleboard players. Well, I put that paper down, and I went right out there right away, and I said, well, I'll come. Oh, no, you can come right now. We got a stick here you can use. So I signed up for shuffle. Well, I'm shuffling, and I've signed up for 1 year, and when we were taking stuff down here, they're over there playing badminton. Oh boy, that's more looks more like my activity rather than this quiet little game. So then I started playing badminton. I played badminton quite a long time at the Wish Center and out there, and also until they took and then I'm playing there, and I saw them playing pickleball. But now I'm in my 80th year. I was kind of late to learn pickleball, but I started playing pickleball, and I bought a couple paddles. I got Nancy into it, but I became a good pickleball player, and I played as often as I could, 2 or 3 times a week. And I played right up to about 3 months ago, I was playing pickleball. Now my legs won't let me do it, so I quit. I can't play it. They still consider me commissioner of the pickleballs in Wish Center. Yes, Harvey's the commissioner. I can't understand here in Chatham. There's so many people here in Chatham that call me by name, and I don't know who they are. I've impressed a lot of people. Whether it's because I had a dog on the back of a motorcycle or rode around like that, but I have people. Rena and I just had breakfast in a restaurant last week in Blenheim. And this guy comes up, Harvey, you don't remember me, I'm Dave Nicholson. You played a lot of golf. Tell me what I should do for golf. I don't remember the guy, you know? Yeah. But they all remember me. Yeah. I'm called by name so often, and I don't know who they are. I can see where it's very difficult for a young couple to get married and buy a house today. In fact, unless you got a good job that's paying you $100,000 a year, so I don't see how they can do this. You know, it's just tough. You can't. When Shirley and I got married, like that farm I bought for $32,000, today would probably be $2 million. You can't go back farming today. No way. It's got to be inherited within the family, or else you're never going to do it. And maybe even the places you want to buy might have to be that way. This place I bought it for $195,000. If I want to sell it, I want $275,000 to $300,000, and I'll probably get it. Yes. So that's how fast things are going. So a young couple today, and a lot of young couples get themselves in trouble, and they have to get married, or they are living just common law because of the situation. They can't do that. They can't get a place, you know. And like places are being built like mad around Port Stanley, around Chatham, out in Presentia. They're just building like crazy. But as people come from Toronto, where the big money is, they're selling the place for $1 million, $1.5 million or $2 million, coming here and buying for $150,000, $200,000, and they got all kinds of money left. But young people don't have that. So I can't see how some young people can really hack it. Now, if they go to school and they get a real good education, they come out with a good degree and get a real good job, that's different. But if you don't get that, you're in trouble, as far as I'm concerned. Yes, I've got grandkids I think are in trouble. I don't know how they can survive, you know. Yep. I would think young people today ought to grab all the education they can get, because even though you may get that education, you have a hard time finding a job. But eventually, if something turns up, you got something behind you that you can show and prove. And I think the co-op education is really good, because then you've got experience that goes along with it. If you just go to school and you come out and they want to hire you, where you work. Oh, I haven't worked. But if you go out on a co-op, you've got references to where you worked, and sometimes they may want to even hire you. I think those programs are great. I know different ones that are on that program, and I think they're wonderful. But education, I think today is a lot of the answer. Yes, yes. I've
Life
changed
experience.
my views a lot over religion. Religion has caused so many problems in life. Just like when Shirley and I got married. Shirley could have had a real nice church wedding. Her dad could have walked her down the aisle, which he wanted to do. And because of religion, that couldn't happen. Religion has caused so much turmoil within the world, and still going on even here today. Yes, if a Catholic wants to marry a Protestant, right away the priest is out there, your kids have all got to become Catholics and so on, you know. There's too much interruptions in people's lives, yes, on religion, yes. Secret of being a good person is being honest, being a lady or a gentleman, and doing unto others as you would have them do them unto you. That's a good person. That's a good start. I find people are all out to beat people, gyp them if they can, cheat if you can, you know, and that's not the way to live, you know. Religion doesn't make you an important person. And it's you that runs your own life. You have to have that. If you haven't got that, you don't have it. You can't beat around the bush. You got to be yourself. Yep. Mm-hmm. I look on life as a business. If you're going to do something, you're going to have a business. You're going to run it where you make a profit. If you have a profit, you've got a good business. Your life is the same way. If you live your life and you live it real good, you're going to have a good life to go to do things for anybody else or for yourself. And that's how I look at life. Life is just, you have something behind you if you have a good life. If you just have a bum life, what are you going to show? You know, that's how I look at it. Yeah. I don't know if that makes a man out of you or what, but I didn't have a lot of fear. I still don't have a lot of fear in certain things, but I didn't have any fear back here in doing anything, you know. Whether that helps you live or die, I don't know.
So
No, I didn't have much fear. I just go ahead and do whatever I want to do. Never thought about it. That's the way I built the barn. That's the way I did the silo. Even though I was advised not to do it, I just figured if I can do this, I can do it. Yep. No fear.
Mhm.
That's just the way I lived.